Hello! So, we are at Gold Coast Airport that's been released recently by Orbx for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and we're here with the Black Square TBM 850. And we're going to go and have a look around the airport to begin with, and then we'll go to have a fly around it. So, okay, let's just jump up into the air to get an overview. So I'm going to speed up. I'm using the drone camera with an Xbox controller to control this. So you can see there's Gold Coast Airport. If we pan around, you can see the scenery around it is absolutely stunning. You can see there's a lot of wonderful texture work has gone on around the various taxiways, and the line painting is absolutely brilliant. And you can see there's the coast just alongside us. So we've got lovely waterways stretching past. It's lovely weather today as well, perfect weather to do this sort of thing. So you can see there's our aeroplane parked down there, and there's a whole series of hangars at this end of the airfield for general aviation. So I've turned the aircraft back on in the simulator, so if we see any stutters, that's all my fault. It's just a limitation of the simulator. When it's loading custom aircraft in, it tends to stutter a little bit. Okay, so we've got the tank farm here, obviously, for the fuel, and there's some fire stations. I'm guessing that's what this is next to the tower. Let's come around this side. Yes, it's a fire station. There's a fire engine. So you can come around and have a look, and you can see it's really nicely modelled. Very cool. Obviously we saw there's the control tower next door, so we'll go and jump over to the control tower. We can fly through the glass and see it from inside. I love it when the control towers allow you to come inside like this. So if you were simulating the control of a tower, you could sit in the tower and watch the traffic taxiing around as you would with the real place. It's fantastic, isn't it? It really adds to the immersion if you can do that sort of thing. Okay, so let's come out and we'll continue on across the runway. So another thing that's really noticeable with this airfield is just how accurate, or I imagine they're accurate, but how high fidelity all the markings are on the ground and the various bits of furniture. It's very, very nice. So I think we got a Model 18 down here, have we? Looks like one, doesn't it? So we'll come around to the side of the terminal here. I'm not sure which terminal's which at Gold Coast, so you'll forgive me. I'm just going to call it the terminal rather than departures or arrivals. So if we come down into the building, you can see, actually, should we see if they've matched this up? So that says departures, okay. I think that's correct, actually. I think departures is this end and arrivals is at the far end. So there's a number of these halls as you go along the airfield. I don't think they've all got the same people sat in them. At least I hope not. Otherwise that might get a bit strange. So you've got various Virgin Australia planes here. I'm using the Simple Traffic add-on to give us some nicely painted aircraft. You can see there's a Qantas 787 over there. Very cool. Another Virgin Australia plane just coming in. There's a Thai Lion here. It's very, very nice. Okay, so the upstairs of this terminal seems to have been modelled, and this is really busy. This must be the new terminal, I'm guessing. So this is departures. So I guess people then go down through the gates once they depart. Okay, so let's jump out of the airfield and have a look round. So obviously this is all airside. Some sort of pond over here, I imagine, for... Well, I don't know what the purposes will be for having the pond, but there it is. The car parks are all really nicely done with all the lighting gantries. Obviously you've got a lot of logistics hardware down here. All neatly parked up for a change. And then obviously coming round to the land side of the airport, if you want to call it that, you suddenly get the hotels. So we've got some of the hotels modelled in, which is really nice, and the trees and the signage. So let's come down to the road and have a look at some of that signage. It looks very cool, doesn't it? So obviously this is the road you'd come into the airport from, so you've got all the advertising on it. It's very, very cool. I wouldn't be surprised if this is pretty much a facsimile replica of the real place. It looks pretty impressive, doesn't it? You can see it butts up against the photogrammetry, but the road markings and the road furniture all look really nice as well, don't they? They've integrated it really well. So we've got international arrivals down here. Presumably there's... Okay, so we've got domestic arrivals that end, and departures in the middle. Okay, so there is kind of some logic to it, I guess. I don't think there's anything modelled on the Landside internally, so if we come inside, I think it's just a big empty space. Yeah, that's a bit of a shame. But then you're not going to see it from the airside anyway. So there's some really nice touches, like the coaches parked up with people waiting to get into them, and various holiday reps stood around. Yeah, so anyway, let's go down to our aeroplane, shall we? And we'll fire our aeroplane up. So the first impression of Gold Coast Airport is it's really, really nicely modelled. So if we zoom up into the air, you can see there's a yacht going past in the bay. See where the coach park is, there's kind of a rotunda with planting in the middle of it. It's really nicely done. You can see all the planes lining up there. Hopefully we're not going to have an argument with any of them when we go to taxi out. Actually, while we're just coming back to our aeroplane, we can get an idea. I think we have to do a right turn with the wind today. Is there any windsocks we can see around? I checked the wind earlier and the wind is coming down the airfield from our left. Looking from here, there's a windsock over there. It's almost hanging straight down, isn't it? There's hardly a breath of wind. Okay, that's good to know. Okay, so here's our aeroplane, the one we left earlier on. Okay, let's put the Xbox controller to one side then. Press the insert key. Jump inside the plane, pull the ladder up. Close the door. And let's see if we can remember. I'm actually going to refer to my own notes, but I'm not going to use the various view keys to look around. I'm just going to use the mouse to look around because it's not a very big cabin. We should be able to figure things out. Let's just check the controls. So I've got ailerons, I've got elevators, I've got rudders, I've got throttle, I've got the propeller condition on my second stick, and that should be good to go then. So first thing we do then is look overhead and we roll the crash bar up. Then we put generators to main, source to bat, and then we go to put the oxygen on. So oxygen, oh, I'd already left it on. That's a bit of a no-no. Radio master switch goes to on down the bottom here. So that's here, and that will power up the GPS and the weather radar and various other bits and pieces. So we'll put the... Oh, it's already on standby on the transponder, that's good. Okay, so then fuel selector goes to auto. So fuel selector's here, that's already on auto. The nav lights can go to on, so they're overhead. And we can essentially start the engines at this point. So the propeller RPM goes to max, so I've done that on my primary controls here. And then auxiliary boost pump goes to auto, so auxiliary boost pump's over here, so all the way up to auto. Go and turn the ignition to auto, starter to on, and that should start spinning the propeller around. We can spin up the GNS 530 while we're waiting. So what we're looking at here is the NG. We're waiting for it to get to 15%. When it goes through 15%, we can advance the fuel condition lever to low idle. Oh, my memory of this is better than I thought. So we then wait for the NG to get to 50%, so it's just going through 40, 45. When it gets to 50, we can turn the starter back off. And then the fuel condition can go to high idle. And you'll see the the engine pick up. Okay, so following doing that, we can go and turn all the gyros on. We can go and turn the inertial separator on. It seems quite noisy out there, doesn't it? It's because we're running at maximum RPM, isn't it? So let's just turn the propeller speed down a bit for the moment. Don't think it's going to make a great deal of difference. Okay. Okay, so then we go to the EFIS master switch, which is up here, and that turns on our electronic screens here. We can select our initial climb altitude, so we're only going to climb up to 2,000 feet today. We'll set the barometric pressure on the traditional altimeter as well. So we'll arm 2,000 feet, and we should be able to then push this to say we want to get there at 1,000 feet a minute. Whether it will remember that, I can't remember. It's that long since I've flown this aeroplane in anger. Okay, so Control 2. Well, I'm not going to use the keyboard shortcuts. I'm going to look. So we go to the ECS section, which is over here, and the order to do things in is go and set the bleed to auto, turn the air conditioning on, and set the cabin climb rate knob, but we're not going to be climbing to altitude, so we don't need to worry about that today. Transponder to standby, it's already on standby. On the autopilot section, AP trims to on. Weather radar can come to on now, it was already on. That was interesting. I'd imagined it was going to be off, but we'll put it to on. It does this self-test, that's all fine. Taxi light can come to on, so that's overhead. We've got the taxi light just there. And we get to the holding point for the runway, so we need to go for a little bit of a journey. So we can see the pitot heats are still off at the moment. We'll go and turn those on because we're going to be taking off very shortly. We can cancel the warnings. So we've just got the inertial separator and the parking brake to deal with now. So we're off the parking brake. We'll set the flaps for takeoff though before we go, so we'll just do that. And we'll put the head tracking on at this point and centre it up. And advance the throttle gently. Now I think I had a problem with the throttle mapping, you know. Oh, I know what's going on. We've got reverse. I was in full reverse the whole time whilst we were warming the engine up. So this just goes to show the mistakes you can make. And my controls have been playing a game with us. So the throttle had stuck itself at minus something, and the parking brake was stuck. So that's a typical kind of issue you get with an Airbus Quadrant using it with other aeroplanes. Okay, that's not the way out of here, that's just the way to go and get fuel. We will find our way out. So you can do everything right in the world and then your controller can pull the rug out from underneath you. Quite smartly. I thought the aircraft didn't sound right. I thought it sounded like the propeller was racing. The level of detail in this airport is brilliant, isn't it? Absolutely brilliant. So if anybody ever wonders, I think I've mentioned this before, why I've concentrated so much on the Australian airports recently, it's purely because at the time I can typically record, it's daytime in Australia, so the live weather matches correctly with what's going on. I don't have to try and invent weather to suit a recording. So we're just taxiing out to the runway. Hopefully we're not in the way of any big planes. did we say there was a... I'm going very much too fast taxiing along here. There feels like there's a bit of a crosswind. I don't think it's the torque from the engine. I think it's the aeroplane trying to weather vane into the wind. Ah, yeah, we have got a crosswind. Look, we can see a windsock here. But we will be turning into the wind, but there is a crosswind element to it, about 30 degrees or so by the look of it. So I'm just going to stop short of the runway and double check the list then. So what should I be checking when we get near the runway? So flaps are as required, the pitot heat is on, we just need to go and turn the transponder on basically, and then the landing lights. So transponder is over here. And then landing lights are overhead. Come off the parking brake. Put the yoke back on. Helps to control an airplane if you have a yoke, doesn't it? Okay. So onto the runway. The last thing we have to do is go and put the strobe on. Should have done that with the landing lights. I'm just glancing sideways at my own notes over here and realising what I'm not following. So power goes to absolutely flat out. For a short time you can get away with 120% torque. But it's not going to do that, is it? It's interesting. Okay, so we can rotate. And we can come back off the power slightly. So 120 feet. Looks amazing from the air, doesn't it? So that crosswind is pushing us to the left. You can see it happening. So now as we're 500 feet, the flaps can come up. And that corresponds as well with the aircraft accelerating beyond flaps range. Okay, so we're going to cut the RPM back now. And the torque slightly. We're going to look for this water and begin a left turn when we hit it. It's probably the wrong term to use. So coming up through, going higher than I actually wanted to go. I thought about doing a 1,000-foot circuit, but coming up towards 1,700 feet slowly, it's absolutely fine actually. Let's have a look outside. Don't want to get much higher than this, so I'm just keeping an eye on that vertical speed. Really, it would be nice to see the runway, wouldn't it, and to get a good look at the airfield as we fly around it. See what the surroundings look like as well. So I'm just trimming out the vertical speed, and the airplane's trying to roll, so I'm just trimming that out as well. Looking pretty good. Okay, so when I was looking earlier, there is like an inlet at the end of the beach here that you can use as kind of a marker for turning in towards your approach. So let's go and come off the throttle. Now, reading the book on the TBM, or any turboprop really, you should really leave the propeller RPM alone. It's a governing propeller, so it will maintain its own speed. It will it will manipulate pitch, or we could turn the inertial separator off while I think of it. So it will manipulate its own pitch to maintain RPM. So you only use the power in a turboprop to influence the speed of the aeroplane. And while we're doing that, we've probably overshot the approach, so I'm just going to come off the power. I think we're looking okay actually. There's the inlet, which is a good marker. I want to come down to 1,000 feet, so here comes 1,000 feet. We're well within undercarriage range, which we never actually raised. So we've dipped a bit low. Let's get that altitude back. This is the first time I've attempted this kind of circuit. I just wanted to do it really as a nice way of seeing the surroundings and having some structure to it. So we're back through 1,000 feet, that's fine. So we'll stay at 1,000 feet for our circuit. And now we'll turn in towards the runway. If we descend as we turn, and we'll go for flaps, which will give us some more drag. So we'll gently descend down onto the correct glide path.
500.
So we've got one PAPI light, or one red I should say, 3 whites. We want 2 and 2. You can see that crosswind, it's affecting us now, look. Now we're slowing down a little bit. There's 2 and 2, so we'll try and maintain just above 80 knots on the way in, which does mean that that turbulence from that crosswind coming down the runway at us is throwing us around a little bit. You can see the aeroplane's bucking around slightly, but nothing too serious. And it's an enormous runway. We really don't need this length of runway with this aeroplane at all. So we come back off the power, hold it off the runway, and it's just touched the runway. Hardly scratched the tyres. So back to takeoff flaps, back to max power and max RPM. And this time we'll do the circuit with the wheels up. So we're coming through 80 knots, nose up, that's all good. So gear up this time, hey. So climbing out, we'll keep maximum power going until we get to about 500 feet. Continue to climb to 1,000 feet. That wind pushing us. Okay, we're just crossing that water again. So we'll make our left turn. Look, the wind is... It's a struggle actually. This plane's so fast, look, it's trying to lift all the time. And we've gained 500 feet before we've even known it during that turn. back up to 1700 feet, so despite our best efforts to stay at 1000 feet, the aeroplane has just naturally climbed and climbed and climbed. So let's just keep this going as a gentle turn then. We'll come back to 50% throttle, which should stop it climbing such a dragster, basically, or moon rocket even. So we're holding 1700 feet now. See the airfield. Head for the buildings. And then we'll come back in again, follow the same pattern again, but this time obviously we've got the undercarriage up, so it'll be interesting to see how the drag, or the lack of drag we now have, affects it as we try to slow down. Obviously we're only running 50% throttle. We were running about 75% before, which worked out actually quite nicely. It kept us at just under 120 knots with the undercarriage down. It's interesting to do these little practice routines just to get to know the aeroplane and to get to know how it handles in different circumstances, or different configurations I should say. So you can see the inlet coming. We're at 1500. We could do with dropping down to 1000, but we won't worry about that until we get back to that final turn. Ideally, I guess we'd want 500 feet, because that would probably put us on the PAPI lights. So let's see if we can do that. It doesn't like cutting the power that much. Get a warning. So let's get the undercarriage down now then, which will give us some drag. We're coming down to 1000 feet. You can see there's the runway. So if we try and maintain about 500 feet a minute descent rate until we get down to sort of 750, 500. We'll see the PAPI lights very soon. We can see they're all white at the moment, but we must be getting within range of being at the right altitude already. So we're going to go for flaps. So we've got 1 red and 3 whites at the moment. Just bobbed above, there we go, 1 red, 3 whites. 2 whites, 2 reds, that's what we were looking for originally. So we got it just, yeah, so that was coming out about 500 feet out of the turn, which is what I was thinking would be about right. Generally most patterns you're looking for 500 feet out of the last turn towards the runway to be on speed at height, at the correct height, correct distance. Obviously we have an enormous runway here to play with. Now we're drifting low a little bit, look, on the PAPI lights, so a bit more power. Cut the power completely. So I'm not going to hit the commercial traffic markers, but we are going to gently come along the runway. That's good. Flaps can come up. And we'll get off the runway away from all the commercial traffic, which is probably really annoyed with us being here. Doesn't it look great with all of the airplanes lined up though? I switched the aeroplanes off quite some time ago in Flight Simulator because of them causing stutters, but it seems to be a lot better than it used to be. I'm actually pleasantly surprised just how good it's been. And it does make a huge amount of difference to the immersion to have the big jets moving around or lining up or departing or arriving. Obviously there doesn't seem to be much around today, but I guess the next thing I could do is go and run FSLTL in the background while we are doing these little tests of various airports and aeroplanes, and then you'll get lots of traffic around. We can't go there, can we? We have to go down to this end. Well, I'm going to park down at the service hangars over here, because without stopping the video and looking at a chart, I have no idea where I am on this amazingly rendered airfield. So we're going to stop at the cargo terminal. Okay, so one of the things about the Black Square aeroplanes is you have to shut them down properly. So obviously the easiest way to shut the engine down is to cut the fuel off to it, which will kill it straight away, and then you can go around the aeroplane. So I'm just going to go and turn the bleed air. Oops, I'm going to do this without the head tracking because it's a pain in the backside for things like this. Bleed air off, air conditioning can come back to off. The radio master switch can go, or actually autopilots, well we didn't use the autopilot, but that can come off first. We'll do the radio almost last. The pitot heats can come off. I think the Black Square aeroplanes remember everything, so you know you do have to go around switching things off. So then generator and source can come off, the ignition can come off of auto. The oxygen needs to be switched off, which is what I forgot earlier. And I think we're pretty much there, so it's just then the radio master switch. And we'd already done the power anyway. That's interesting that the radios, were they using auxiliary? Is there an auxiliary switch? It's interesting they were still on. Anyway, there we go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So let's go and open the door. Let ourselves back out. And go and get told off for parking in the cargo area. At the Qantas Freight Terminal on the supply road. Yeah, we get told off for all sorts of things. Okay, so that was the... If we can have a look outside, go back to the drone camera. This was the Gold Coast Airport from Orbx. So let's take off like Superman and go and have a look at it from the drone camera. It's very cool, isn't it? So hopefully you enjoyed that. I apologise for my circuit flying skills. They were more circus flying than circuit flying today, but I was more interested in looking at the airport really than operating the 850 properly. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. So that was the Gold Coast Airport from Orbx in Microsoft Flight Simulator. I'll see you again soon.